The movie unfolds in the year 2071 in the city of Moscow. The surroundings depict how the planet Earth has greatly suffered from the intergalactic war fueled by Cherno, an evil scientist who dreams of conquering the entire universe. He is regarded as the most dangerous prisoner, turning his experiments as weapons that threaten lives. 20 years after the war, the humans, also known as Earthlings, still face hardships and struggle to sustain their basic needs. Anton, a young male Earthling, waits in a long line of humans to refill his water supply when a mysterious figure from the shadows intentionally manipulates a metal pole to collapse from behind him. Anton manages to evade the falling pole, but it creates a commotion in the area. The humans in line stare at him in dismay, accusing him of being plagued by bad luck out of the annoyance at the continuous accidents involving him. Meanwhile, the mysterious figure who turns out to be Cherno's daughter, Valia, reports back to her father in his gigantic spaceship-turned-prison. Valia's consistent failed attempts to stimulate Anton's DNA upsets Cherno. His latest invention, called the protogene, a combination of unique cells, is about to run out. The last remaining protogene is revealed to be within Anton's DNA, and it serves as the only key to his freedom. As a result, Cherno continually pressures her to keep on pursuing Anton and kill him for good, to which Valia feels heavily burdened. While Cherno's prison resides in the Earth's deep underground, another huge spaceship hovers right above it inside the city. This spaceship is displayed as a dandelion-shaped stadium that caters to a high-risk flying sport known as Cosmoball. In this sport, intergalactic teams of 4 must kick the destructive ball of energy called Wave Eater 5 times to open their opposing team's goal and score a point. 3 gifted humans, Fan, Natasha, and Pelly, make up the Team Earthlings, in which they all skillfully strike their opponent's goal open amidst being outnumbered. The game is broadcasted everywhere above the skies of the Earth in big holographic scenes, serving as the humans' greatest source of entertainment. On the contrary, Anton is frustrated at the impact brought by Cosmoball to the humans. He calls them out for being too immersed in a game when there are far better things to focus on, such as getting a job and dealing with hunger. Back in the stadium, the Earthlings and their current opponent, the Ferocians, both succeed at opening their opposing goal zones. Stan, a star player of the Ferocians, strikes a goal and they take the lead against the Earthlings by 1. In fact, the Wave Eater is one of Cherno's inventions. In the midst of transporting another Wave Eater to the playing field, Cherno successfully intercepts the transfer and instead tosses the wave towards the machines. A few machines smash to bits, severely injuring the guards in the process. This urges Bello, the head of the Galactic Cosmoball League, to momentarily halt the game and inform the players about the sudden technical difficulty. The guards regain control of the Wave Eater, and the game resumes as soon as the ball reaches the playing field. Though the game ends in a draw, it is the first time in history that the Earthlings triumphantly make their way to the finals, earning a loud cheer from the human spectators in and out of the stadium. Cherno, on the other hand, shouts in anguish at the sight of his creation turning into lumps of rock. The night emerges and Anton comes home to his sick mother. He finds out that his mom has been lying about her medical supply and pretends to be fine. Anton rushes to the pharmacy, where he comes across a young woman named Anya. The two of them break into the pharmacy to steal some food and medical supplies, but the alarm immediately catches the attention of the police. 2 police officers, led by Captain Vasily, catch up to them. Anton pretends to surrender alone and distracts the officers while Anya remains hidden. He manages to create an opening by distracting them and is able to run away. Just then, Anton runs and crashes onto a rushing vehicle, causing him to shout in panic. Vasily checks the front of the truck only to find nothing else but the stolen medicine spilled all over the floor. They leave the place in confusion, while Valia, who has effectively concealed herself as the driver of the truck, grins in satisfaction. Later, it is revealed that Anya is also Valia, who has been following Anton all this time. Anton's fear has activated the protogene and his teleportation ability for the first time, as he teleports uncontrollably a few miles away from his previous location. Disguised as Anya, Valia lures Anton to her basement and captures his attention through their common interests, such as their shared dislike for Cosmoball and their desire to help their sick parents. Anton listens intently, oblivious of why Anya pulls a few strands of his hair to collect a portion of the protogene from his DNA. Anya brings the hair strands to her father. However, the protogene barely responds because of the inadequate amount. Meanwhile, Anton comes back home surprised at the sight of Bello and the Team Earthlings in their house. Bello confirms Anton's teleportation ability and expresses his interest in recruiting him as the fourth player of the Team Earthlings. Anton strongly declines, telling them that he does not like Cosmoball and that he has to take care of his sick mom. Natasha steps in and insists on finding a cure for his sick mom in exchange for his approval. She convinces both Bello and Anton, and they seal the deal with a handshake. Anton is instantly brought to the stadium ship, where he marvels at every sight. During his checkup, Bello takes a sample of Anton's genetic material in order to generate his very own Sputnik, a droid that will serve as his gear and buddy during the games. Everyone from Team Earthling owns a Sputnik that caters to their respective body composition. Anton slightly struggles in the first few minutes of training, but does not take long to control his teleportation abilities. He adjusts to the abilities quickly enough for Bello and the Team Earthlings to observe a situation that they have never encountered. Deep in thought, Bello instructs Anton to play for the first two games the next day and resume his training afterwards. Bello leaves with Natasha afterwards to meet with the Galactic Council and talk about a possible cure for Anton's mother. The Council displays their contempt in the thought of helping Anton and his mother's intergalactic infection, but Bello firmly insists on going by the deal. He regards Anton as the most gifted athlete after having seen his performance on the first day of training. Natasha spends time with Anton and expresses her fondness of him every chance she gets, which bewilders Anton most of the time. On another note, Valia, who has shapeshifted as her alternate identity Anya, captures Anton's attention through their shared dislike for Cosmoball and the same intention of finding a cure for her father. She takes advantage of Anton by giving him a poisonous pod that can possibly destroy the stadium ship and end Cosmoball for good. Anton's Sputnik arrives at the scene with Natasha to fetch him. Before they leave, Anya gives Anton a peck on the lips and slips the pod on his hand while Anton's Sputnik eyes Anya suspiciously. On their way back to the stadium ship, Anton grows interested in his Sputnik. Natasha tells him that Sputniks warn their owner on potential threats and may or may not activate battle mode depending on the probability of danger. Another game of Cosmoball commences the following day. The poisonous pod stays undetected even after going through inspection. The Team Earthlings link with their Sputniks to gear up for the game. Anton, who is warily holding the poisonous pod in his hand, gets it stuck beneath his glove. Anton talks to his Sputnik and removes the glove, and Anton uses his hand to squeeze the poisonous pod, and its sap spreads across the stadium ship's floor. Anton nonchalantly walks away after following Anya's orders and enters the waiting area. As the athletes enter the playing field, Anton finds himself surrounded by a large crowd full of welcoming cheers. Back in his house, his mom watches the game together with Vasily, looking healthier than ever from the continuous medications. Soon, the players get into position and start the game. Anton, on the other hand, sits on the ground and ignores the entire game, causing the audience to call him a quitter. Bello pauses the game to summon Anton, attempting to talk some sense into him. He shows Anton the entire machinery inside the stadium ship and explains how Cosmoball is more than just a game. He tells Anton about the war, Cherno, the Wave Eater, and his last invention, which is the protogene. Ultimately, he says to Anton that being an athlete allows him to give his fellow Earthlings something to hope for amidst their current situation. Anton eventually realizes the repercussions of his action and runs back to retrieve the poisonous pod that he dropped, only to find that it has already seeped into a portion of the ship's stadium. He comes back to the playing field and shouts that the stadium has been infected, but to no avail as the game goes on. Bello fortunately notices him and reacts quickly by freezing the infected area. The poison continues to spread, and the stadium ship goes into emergency evacuation mode in order to protect the audience. Natasha arrives to free the remaining audience stuck inside when the Wave Eater dashes toward her direction. Anton sees this and races to her aid before the athletes kick the wave eater 5 times, which results in its meltdown. He loses consciousness from being hit by the wave eater, but he wakes up not long after. Then he immediately goes to confront Anya in her basement, yet as soon as their eyes meet, she stuns Anton and shows him her true form as Valya while confessing her admiration towards him. Even so, she is disappointed in him for not completely destroying the stadium ship and begins to collect a moderate amount of protogene in his DNA before leaving him unconscious. Anton's Sputnik hurriedly looks for him after sensing the threat. Finding him lying unconscious, his Sputnik connects with him and ends up exhausting itself to heal Anton's injury. At the same time, Cherno acquires the protogene from Valya and begins his escape plan. Through the protogene, Cherno summons another one of his creations, a gigantic puppy-like creature. He links himself with the creature to gain full control and uses it as a spaceship. The protogene in his possession also grants him the ability to teleport his way out. After a while, Anton wakes up and sees Natasha and Bello beside him. Somewhere inside the same basement, Bello hears Cherno calling his name. Cherno addresses Bello as his creator and invites him to join forces with him. Natasha becomes confused upon hearing this. She questions him up front, but Bello shrugs her off. Along with the Cerusians and Amazonians, they all gather outside and briefly encounter Cherno as he successfully escapes and teleports out of planet Earth. Meanwhile, the athletes stay on guard throughout the city while Bello informs the Galactic Council. He also reveals the closely guarded secret about Cosmoball to everyone. They learn that Cosmoball is not a game, but a war, and that the stadium ship is built to prevent the destruction of the planet. Back in his home, Anton's mom comes to tell him that the athletes are leaving for the war against Cherno, but Anton lies down wearily and disheartened from the events around him while holding his Sputnik in his embrace. His mom turns to comfort him, saying that on planet Earth, people make mistakes all the time, but there are strong people who try to fix the mistakes they've made. Simultaneously, Bello holds another meeting with the Galactic Council about their plan of action, when Natasha suddenly enters. Natasha is still bugged by what she heard. She persistently asks Bello why Cherno addressed him as his creator. Bello is left with no choice but to explain to her that Cherno is the greatest failure as a fellow scientist. He says that Cherno was forged in his image. He admits his mistakes, thinking that Cherno would assist him like the Sputniks do. He has given him feelings, but has failed in shaping those feelings. Bello and Cherno's falling out has led to the banishment of Cherno and has resulted in the events of the Intergalactic War 20 years back. Outside the planet Earth, Cherno prepares to fire his newly created wave eaters from his ship. He reunites with Valya, instructing her to prevent the athletes from leaving the Earth as long as she can. The huge battle ensues immediately after Cherno sends a succession of wave eaters to the surface of Earth. At the same time, Fan, Peli, along with the members of the Cerusians and Amazonians, spread out in different positions outside the city in anticipation. They continuously kick at the incoming wave eaters, tossing it towards each other to complete the 5 strikes. Outside, the ships of the Galactic Fleet set up a trap for Cherno and his ship through the supervision of Bello. Cherno, on the other hand, nullifies the trap and destroys the ship single-handedly, which is watched by Bello and Natasha in torment. Using the stadium ship, they continue their pursuit on Cherno. In the midst of destroying the wave eaters, the athletes begin to feel fatigue. Stan is on the verge of overheating while Fan is injured from being hit by the wave eater. Despite that, they push forward. The impact of their swift strike causes some buildings to crash in some areas of the city. It is when Anton alarmingly gets up and witnesses what is happening. He talks earnestly to his Sputnik and fully establishes their connection. Anton later calls his Sputnik's name Mowgli, which finally awakens it. Anton heads out to assist Fan and Peli. He brings injured Fan to safety with the help of their fellow Earthlings. The residents of the city of Moscow find shelter against the falling debris, including Anton's mom and Vasily, who has developed a romantic relationship after hanging out together on several occasions. Up in the sky, 2 wave eaters in a row rush towards Anton's direction. He manages to strike the first one, but fails to notice the second one, which drags him towards the ground. He lands safely, but ends up in tattered clothes. His Sputnik, Mowgli, senses the situation and instantly comes to his aid. They happily reconcile and link together, creating Anton's gear for combat. Anton is now able to communicate with the rest of the athletes, and with Mowgli in battle mode, he begins to strike once again in full spirit. He successfully destroys each Wave Eater with only one hit, impressing the rest of the athletes. On the other side, Bello decides to face Cherno head-on. He gives Natasha full control of the ship's stadium, ordering her to go back to Earth and save the others in case he does not make it back alive. Natasha agrees and teleports with Bello inside Cherno's ship, where they arrive to finally confront him. Bello later shows his true form while facing Cherno. They shortly catch up on the 20-year gap, and immediately after, their battle transpires. Cherno sneaks an attack towards Bello, but they quickly catch on. In response, Natasha teleports right in front of Cherno to kick him, but Valya interrupts her. Natasha evades Valya's attack and teleports away. However, Valya captures and stuns her instantly. Cherno aggressively charges at Bello, gloating that he has gotten much stronger than him despite being his creation. Meanwhile, Anton successfully teleports on the Earth's moon with Mowgli, witnessing the moon's sorry state. Mowgli's alarm activates, sensing danger nearby. They head towards the area straight away while thinking of Natasha and Bello. In the ship, Bello angers Cherno after he attacks with balls of ice towards his protogenes. Cherno creates a large shield to protect his creation while Bello continuously attacks. Bello slips up a ball of ice right above the shield where he directly hits Cherno. The ice spreads around Cherno and it freezes his entire body. When Bello's constant attacks break the shield and almost freeze Cherno's entire creation of protogenes, Valya shapeshifts to Natasha's form and stuns him. Valya currently gains the upper hand, incapacitating both Bello and Natasha before she destroys the ice that has been trapping Cherno. Cherno breaks free and utilizes his elastic gear to strangle Bello. He says his parting words and is about to kill him, but Anton arrives in time. Anton takes Valya hostage against Cherno, making him release his hold on Bello. Cherno walks towards Anton's direction and challenges him as if he can never kill Valya. He mentions that Valya has never been a perfect creation and stabs her in the abdomen himself. Cherno's blade lightly touches Anton's gear, and it pushes him forcefully on the lining of the ship where he is trapped and unable to teleport. Bello barely manages to keep Cherno distracted by dropping a bead of ice in an attempt to neutralize the power of the ship. The evil Cherno proceeds to direct his makeshift spear towards Bello and kills him instantly. Anton takes the chance to connect with the ship itself through their shared cells. He meets the puppy-like creature and it wildly chases him. As Anton nears the exit, he decides to stop and directly faces the creature instead. The wild creature is taken aback, its limbs coming to a full stop in front of the Earthling. They both stare at each other for a moment, and Anton later protests vehemently at the creature for its threatening behavior. It roars at him in reply before it senses their connection. Pushing further, Anton calms the creature by lightly touching its head. Soon enough, he successfully establishes trust with the creature, enabling him to break free of the lining of the ship. Furthermore, the creature grows fond of Anton, which ultimately destroys its connection from Cherno. Cherno tries to resist and exclaims that he is the master, but the creature no longer listens to him. He is mercilessly ejected out of the ship and tossed onto a massive ball of hot gas where he melts to death. Natasha regains control of her body after being released from the trap. Anton teleports back to her and together they return to Earth. On Earth, the citizens have grown tired of hiding. They become determined to survive and gather to fight for humanity. Through Valya's lead, they go to position, ready to fight the Wave Eaters coming their way, when all suddenly stop and stay in place after Cherno's defeat. Claiming their victory, the residents of the city of Moscow cheer out loud. After some time, the city is brought to better shape under the leadership of Natasha. The energy from the remaining Wave Eaters has been harnessed to restore and improve the way of life on Earth.